Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Magdalena Ciszewska about how the new hybrid work model could lead to fundamental changes to the workplace as we know it. Magdalena Ciszewska, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Hi, hello, how are you?
Very good. I am so excited to have a chance to chat with you today. For the listeners, you're in for a treat. Magdalena joins us all the way from Poland. We're in the morning here in Utah, and it's evening there in Poland. And we were having fun chatting before the interview as we were preparing, and connecting a little bit. I've traveled to Poland 5 or 6 times. And so we were just sharing a little bit about those experiences. And I'm always thrilled when I can bring an international flavor to the podcast. So Magdalena, I'm excited to have you joining us today and to be discussing such an important topic. You have a lot of executive experience working in virtual workspaces and hybrid workspaces. So today we're going to be focusing on a new hybrid work model and how that might be connected to a shift in the future of work, which, to me is a fascinating thing to think about. And, I think about COVID and the impact of COVID on the nature of work and the move of workspaces into the more virtual environment. The pros and cons of that. And so I think naturally it brings up this question of how about a hybrid model and what could that look like and how would that work? So that's what we're going to be discussing today. As we get started, I just wanted to read Magdalena's bio for everyone. Magdalena Ciszewska has over 15 years of experience working for international advertising agencies, many that I'm not even sure I could pronounce all of their names correctly, and many SaaS companies. Although she has extensive expertise in integrating marketing, she has dedicated her career to digital. Having worked in the tech industry for 7 years, she has been building global marketing, product and growth strategies, optimizing sales funnels, and creating brand designs for expansion to new markets in Asia and America. She strongly believes that new technologies in the online environment carry a wealth of opportunity that will drive the future marketing course of action into the future. And again, as we were discussing in the pre-interview, even though you've been in the marketing world and in the marketing roles for years, you've really moved into executive roles and doing a lot of focus around people management and organizational leadership. So I think your insights from both the marketing standpoint, from the tech standpoint, the international standpoint, and in your executive role will be very helpful today. As we get started, anything else you would like to add by way of personal background or any sort of context for listeners to get to know you a little bit better?
No, well, you've done a pretty good introduction. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. What's funny actually about the bio, when I was writing it several months ago, before the pandemic, I didn't even realize how true that last sentence about technology driving the relations would be in today's world, and it's actually quite a challenging time. But I'm keen to start to share my experience with how it's been so far in terms of people management, executive roles and challenges that it brings us today.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. So let's really dive on in to this topic of a new hybrid model. What do you mean by that? What does a new hybrid model of work look like potentially? How can it be utilized and implemented? And then we can go from there.
Yeah, I think we're at the moment we're redefining the model and the definition of hybrid work. Before the pandemic and in previous years, we could easily say that hybrid work would be just people connecting, having that balance, spending some of their time doing home office and partially working from the office. It was usually the choice. It usually was dictated by the nature of the business that someone was working in, or the nature of the department. A lot of IT specialists or IT developers would have that model because historically those would be the people who were freelancing or working remotely due to some challenges in finding the right professional. And then in many other departments of the companies, the hybrid model would be something that executives or heads of departments wouldn't approve of, as being perceived as inefficient. And I must say that I myself I wasn't that keen on hybrid model. I would always imagine managing teams um, from the office. I couldn't see myself being an effective leader or an effective manager, running the team that's completely remote. So when the March hit us all. It was a sudden shift, and it was scary, I think, for many organizations, for many companies. Click Meeting is an online meeting platform. So we did in the past use Click Meeting or our platform as a tool to connect with people. We do marketing and we do sales around the globe. So it was kind of embedded in our nature to do the online and the remote. But then suddenly, when the entire organization had to shift, even for us, even for a tech company that's very open to change, it was a huge challenge, because suddenly we had to change everything about the way that we manage our teams, that we build the team relationships, that we check the effectiveness of the work that people do. And I think that we were not alone. Looking at the articles from the beginning of this year, or from the first half of the year, it was very scary to read how the organizations are really finding themselves in a very difficult situation, because their structures were not prepared to manage remote teams. And when the isolation or the lockdown started hitting different countries around the globe, the companies stopped having any choice but to adapt the new model. So I think it was a huge change. But now, as the 8 months passed, we see that the hybrid model, well, currently most companies use fully remote model, because it's not possible for many to go back to the office. But some companies adopted a model where the employees are rotating when they're trying to kind of interchange and take shifts, so they limit the risk of transmitting the COVID and maintaining the business continuity, because right now it's about that. We can't imagine how how it could affect a company if all the employees at once contracted the coronavirus. So looking at the model, I think that the remote that the remote work model is the one end of the spectrum, and then you have the stationary end, which is obviously right now we can call it the old school way of working. And the new hybrid model is something that we are still yet to explore, because what we've noticed is that we've done a research, we've surveyed over 500 professionals, and what we've noticed is that on one hand side, people are not necessarily technically, in technical respect, prepared to work remotely. There's a lot of challenges, like, you know, physical setup, you know, the ergonomy of their environment, the right internet connection, and the right software. Some people's the nature of work doesn't simply allow them to work from home. So there's a lot of challenges that not only the leaders are facing in a way, but people themselves. They have families, children at home. I think that what's actually quite interesting is that even at our company, at Click Meeting, I actually know the kids of pretty much all of our employees right now, because you know, on any occasion there's always an unexpected visitor around the meeting. But there's certain procedures that we had to implement and include to help people manage that, to support. There's a whole different area that needs to be explored. The first thing that we did in our company, we did a survey. So the whole idea of doing a broader research started with our own internal survey, when suddenly we learned that our employees love working remotely. So despite the fact that they don't have the right internet connection at times, or the kids are interrupting at times, none of our employees want, well, almost 90% of our employees don't ever imagine going back to the office full time. And there were a lot of very surprising findings that we as a company internally had to face. And we had to shift our attitudes as leaders, because me myself me as a leader, I had to go back and think, okay, my team doesn't want to go back to the office. What do I do? uh, and there were another few findings that were very interesting. On one hand side, people find that they're being much more effective because there's less distractions. There's no you know, coffee moments, coffee breaks, breakfast, kitchen, you know, the corridor gossip. So the way people are working is slightly different. So there's less distraction. They're simply focused on what they do. So they're very much task oriented. But at the same time, people find it that they do miss relationships with other people, that they feel isolated, that there's a whole area that that the employers and the companies didn't have to look at in the past. They didn't have to think about their employees' emotional well-being, for example. And that was one of the key challenges, and that's what we are currently trying to build, which is kind of trying to find the perfect way of maintaining the benefits of people staying at home, but at the same time trying to find um, the right environment for them so they can connect with others. Because, and that's where it started. So we did the whole research, and we found that we're not the only ones facing the same issues. We learned that people, despite the fact that there's some technical issues and technical challenges, people love staying at home, love working at home. They find their work very effective. But at the same time, the biggest issue that they're facing with that fully remote work system is the fact that they miss other people. So I think that going in a very roundabout way, I'm heading into the hybrid work model. So I think that in the long run, what we need to do is take what we've learned from the past 8 months, from what the employees are telling us about the efficiencies of work, about being oriented on task, about some challenges, and about the isolation, and try to bring best of both worlds into our management systems, in terms of you know, creating new plans. Because despite the isolation, over half of our respondents don't ever imagine going back to the office, um, and further 30% believe that the hybrid model would be perfect for them, and only 16% would ever want to go back to the office full time, and we cannot ignore that.
I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership: Ordinary, Everyday Actions That Produce Extraordinary Results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. I'm excited to share my insights with you.
That's so fascinating. And in a moment, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about what the hybrid model is starting to look like for your organization. But one of the things you touched on towards the beginning of your comment was really this idea that there's probably a lot of different ways to do a hybrid model. You mentioned the spectrum, right? And you have the traditional face-to-face office environment, you have the virtual office environment. Those are on two ends of the spectrum. And then really anything in between is going to be hybrid, right? And so then it's really up to organizations to know your people, know their preferences, know what the demands of the business are in terms of business continuity and customer relationships and customer facing positions and such. And then finding somewhere along that spectrum that will maximize the benefits of the traditional workspace versus the virtual workspace. And, hopefully the idea is that we hit it out of the park, that we find that correct balance. But ultimately each organization is probably going to have to find, what that balance is for them. And largely that will depend on their people and their preferences. It struck me as incredibly interesting that at your organization, you said 90+% said that they don't see themselves ever coming back, right, to traditional full-time face-to-face work environment. And even in your study of 550 or so other executives, it was about 50%, you said, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so that's incredible. And like you said, that does tell us a very compelling story that we can't ignore. Now, that doesn't mean that your business or some other business has to allow 90% of their people to you never come back face to face. Just because that's their preference doesn't mean that's what you have to do. But you don't ignore it, and you have to find something that will end up working for everyone, both from the leader standpoint and the line worker standpoint.
Absolutely. I think that, as you mentioned, there's a full spectrum of the hybrid model possibilities. And I think that the one key aspect that in the past was playing a huge role in employing people, so the manager's preference has suddenly become not that significant right now. We were forced in a way to open up to what the employees are saying, and we need to it's kind of like an entire mindset that has had to change. And there's no going back. Like once we started checking how people are dealing with the isolation, how people are dealing with the remote or hybrid models, and we've learned that they actually love it. And most of all, we've learned that those models are very effective because people are thinking, okay, I'm saving time, I'm focusing more on work than rather than gossip. Different motivations every person has. What I'm thinking is that one is, as I mentioned, the employee preferences that need to be considered right now with remodeling the business. Two, I think that a lot of companies have noticed that it's actually, well, just from the business standpoint, moving to hybrid model or moving to fully remote model, or any of those combined, um, is bringing businesses a lot of advantages. So there were a lot of barriers. So for example, click meeting in the past, when we were trying to convince businesses that, going online, meeting your customers online, meeting your team online is fine. You can build relationships. You can actually do that. All you need to do is to take that shift in your thinking and in management of your team, a slightly different approach to managing tasks, managing workload. Once you take that step, it's going to be great for you. You're going to see a lot of advantages. When you search for new employees, you won't be limited geographically to one location. You will have much more choice. You'll be able to connect with many more customers, and so on and so on. A lot of companies wouldn't believe us because it's such a huge shift that they wouldn't be ready to take that risk. So when the pandemic hit, a lot of businesses just had to do it without thinking, just to maintain continuity. And I think that a lot of businesses and a lot of teams and a lot of leaders, they just realized that that there's more advantages than disadvantages of that model. So currently, for our company, currently in Poland, we're on the lockdown. So basically our government said, okay, whoever can stay at home, stay at home. Don't go to the office. If you don't have to, don't go out if you have to. So we're very much in that huge lockdown period. But it doesn't mean that we're not preparing ourselves for let's say spring, when we all be able to go back to normal. But what we need to do as an organization, and a lot of companies need to do the same thing, is define the new normal. We need to see what would be the sweet spot for that that balance, and then the golden medium for that. Because what we did was, I don't know, there's hot desks, booking systems that some companies are using. There's, for us, instead of clicking, home office, people are choosing office if they want to go to the office. What we need to do, there's certain roles in each company that require physical presence. So there's some roles that would require people to go to the office, so go to work physically, and some roles that don't require that. And how to kind of avoid that, how to connect those two worlds within one organization is a huge challenge. And I think that a lot of HR teams and a lot of HR departments that are, advising the executives or the leaders are right now working on that. But I think that there's no one answer. Just as you said, each company has to do the analysis and has to create their best tool set to enable that. So with the companies like ours, we shifted to online. We're using online task management systems. We're using time log systems. We're using communicators. We're using click meeting pretty much every minute, every day. And what we're doing as well, we are looking at different ways of team building, and online team building is not that easy. So and so with the employees, we still see the big engagement of every single team member, but at the same time, I think I used to say that as a leader, managing tasks is an easy one. Managing human emotions and managing the soft the soft skills and the aspect of communication is the biggest challenge. And right now, I think there's a lot of research that shows that the non-verbal cues that we send into each other, the whole aspect of just building the presence. We didn't realize how hugely that affects business relationships and work relationships. We thought, and we saw it as a natural thing, and right now we see that people and the companies are like ours are focusing on creating and bringing more and more engagement, because we see that that's the key aspect that's missing. And it's actually quite common, and it doesn't, and there's some commonalities. It doesn't matter whether you're manufacturing or IT or travel or whatever industry you're in. There's some commonalities in terms of what people are feeling and missing right now. And one of them is that interaction. One of them is building the relationships, talking to people, having small talk. And I think that with the hybrid work model, the team connections would be the biggest issue, not the task management or workload management.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think those relational elements have always been some of the highest profile types of issues that leaders have to deal with, or at least good leaders. There are bad leaders who don't tend to focus on those sorts of things. They focus on the tasks. Inevitably, they end up burning through people. There's lots of turnover. But if you're looking for a sustainable team, a sustainable organization, you have to focus on those communication and relational elements. You have to focus on empathy towards your people and making sure that they feel supported and empowered. And that's not easy. It just takes a lot of consistent, concerted effort over a sustained period of time to be able to do that, to develop the trust and to develop the ability to have that connection with your people. So I agree. I think that's the challenge of this virtual workspace. I think hybrid models, whatever the balance that an organization decides on, the hybrid model can be utilized effectively so that you can still get the benefits of the face-to-face, in-person relational development, team building, those sorts of things that can sustain you while you're in the virtual space. So I think that's something we're going to continue to have to explore. Organizations are going to have to decide what's best for them, and we need a lot more research on it moving into the future.
I think so. We're committed to providing that research. We're each month we're checking different data. We're looking at what people are doing, how they're feeling about the change. On one hand side, it helps our product to be developed in the right way, but on the other hand side, it also shows us the right solutions for us as an organization, because I think that the one thing that I miss right now about the hybrid model, and I don't think we will ever go back to the fully traditional office model. The one thing that we're missing right now is that that relationship, because it's very difficult to maintain. I don't know if you know the turquoise organizations that are based on trust and leadership brought from bottom up. It's very hard to maintain that because the control systems that are now required are kind of defying the whole purpose of having people bringing trust and having people do their thing and bring the initiative and take on the initiative. And I think that the teams are struggling with that right now. So the hybrid model will allow us to loosen down the control mechanism so people can gain back that the freedom, the trust, and build relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Magdalena, it's been a real pleasure talking with you today. I really appreciate your insights, sharing some of your research, and helping us understand what your organization is doing to adjust to this new reality that we're in. And I think it's important for everyone listening and for every leader to think carefully about what the future of work will look like for your organization, what that'll mean for your employees, and how you leverage and maximize the potential of your people, even if that means shifting more permanently to a virtual environment or a hybrid environment, and trying to maximize the benefits, the pros and cons, minimize the cons, maximize the pros of the face-to-face versus the virtual environment. Before we close today, I just want to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your company, or anything else like that you would like to say in parting.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, first of all, you can find me on LinkedIn, Magdalena Ciszewska. Obviously, go to clickmeeting.com to see our platform. We're an online meetings and conferencing platform that allows to that allows to organize any kind of online event, from the smallest one-on-one meetings to huge virtual conferences.
Excellent. Well, I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected with Magdalena, find out more about what she and her company can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
We are excited about the launch of HCI's new magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine designed to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Check out the first issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.